Episode 5. With me here today is my co-host, Elizabeth Sloan, and our guest, Inner Practitioner. And today we're just going to jump in and talk about consumerism, materialism, capitalism, Black Friday, supporting small businesses, and see where that takes us.
So I must say that looking throughout history and seeing the major contrast between people who are solely for materialism and how that can change your material reality and how that can affect your spiritual reality. Take a look at Egypt. They loved the power of materialism. Exotericism worked very well with their form of spirituality. They used the material world to help further connect them. Such as pyramids, for example, or their great use of iconography. So using things like that was great for them. But if you skip ahead to, you could say something like Buddhism, or you could say later medieval looking Christianity, when icons were being completely shamed. And so no vision sort of things. God is within. You can't make a vision of God because he is within you only. So seeing that kind of balance between these two forms of ways of like supporting materialism or not supporting it is very interesting, because I'm a big supporter of physical materialism. I think that it definitely affects your reality and how that can boost your spirituality. So such as pyramids, the scientific benefits that pyramids can offer a room, a body. I think that they are worth exploring and having within your space, So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a balance, I think there's a lot to the Buddhist philosophy of detaching from the material world altogether and that you don't need these things. And for me, I guess, because I'm a collector, I like little knickknacks and I like traveling and bringing things back into my space from the experiences and the places that I travel to. And for me, where I fall in the debate of materialism and objects and is that I like when there's a creator of the object, like whatever it is, whether it's lotion or pyramids or a piece of art. Like, I like feeling as though a real person created that for me with intention. And I think that's what magic is to me. Anytime someone is creating something with intention and love, the corny stuff, it carries those properties with it and it can influence your reality. Whereas when you buy from giant corporations, I think it doesn't carry that anymore. And so that's where I stand on it, is that you got to love some good trinkets and random things. And I definitely have my own good luck charms and whatnot that I think improve my reality and help me explore my own spirituality. But I think it's a dangerous game when you start becoming overly attached to physical objects as a source of your happiness.
Yeah. What do you think, IP?
I like things, especially crystals. I'm attached to a lot of things, but things never really made me happy. That's what I realized. No matter how many things I had, no matter how much money I made, it never made me happy. There's also always this spiritual hunger inside that pushed me forward more and more. So I realized that no matter what I buy or what I have, my ego feels happy temporarily, but it never lasts. It's like you're always thirsty. The more you drink, the more thirsty you become. And then I realized that it's okay to have things. Sometimes you need these things. Like the crystals can give you energy or healing properties. Like you said, that can help your energy body or your spiritual development, things like that. So it's good to own things, but I don't want to let them own me. I have to keep.
Yeah, I like that. It's good to own things, but don't let them own you.
Yeah, let's tweet that.
Okay, throwing it on Twitter later today.
It's about the attachment. me and the thing, the relationship of it. Same thing with social media. Am I using social media or social media using me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, personally, I've been really, I've been
Otherwise,
trying to get really real with myself lately about my relationship with social media, you know, in terms of, I think it's an incredible tool where I have thoughts that help free my own mind and heal me. And then when I can share those thoughts with thousands of people, then I'm helping the healing of the population and the people. But at the same time, it's a very slippery slope where I don't want to
Have that
feel like
dependent.
I'm tweeting for the sake of tweeting, or I want the serotonin rush of retweet, notifications. I don't want to live like to become a slave to that. Like I feel like I have to fulfill that, as opposed to just seeing it as a tool to awaken consciousness in the population.
Mm-hmm.
you're very aware. That's amazing. There's so many energies on Twitter coming at us. And once you get caught up in that, we start losing ourselves. We become kind of like autopilot. That's why every day I take a few hours off Twitter. I just sit in my sofa and I feel my feelings to bring myself back to my energy. Yeah, but coming back to the material thing, I realized that our bodies live in 3D. This is what the world is. So it's okay to have material things to support this body. Just make sure that it doesn't own us, just the attachment portion. And you can actually use material to bond with other people to help them too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
So I wouldn't say material is all bad or good. It's about balance, about the person. And then in 4D, you can navigate and discern. In 5D, use your heart and awareness. It's a beautiful design. Yeah, it's part of the design.
yeah, and I find that like in my own spirituality, I feel very drawn to create material objects. You know, I feel this pull to create
Permits?
things in the physical. And if I feel drawn to create things in the physical, then it must make sense that like, yeah, that not all objects are bad. If in my own spirituality, I feel drawn to create objects for other people and to share that and to bring my energy into other households around the world, then there's got to be something to that, more than just blatant consumerism and feeling like we need more of this, more of that, more, you know.
What do you guys think about having the balance between being too physical, where maybe your root chakra is just exploding and it's the only thing that's exploding, compared to someone whose crown chakra is the only thing that's exploding. So if your root chakra is the only thing that's really lit up, you are almost dependent onto the physical realm. There is only the base of making sure, obviously your physical priorities are met, but all of the physical luxuries that come, you have sex, you have food, you have music, you have these things that are very stimulating to this physical vessel. And then you have the latter where you have the crown chakra that's lit up. And that would mean that you're so tapped into the ethereal that you're not really paying attention to the physical realm, So you have maybe for the root chakra, you have like sex addicts, or you have other kinds of addictions, or you have um, people who work out, like they're big working out, everything like that. Or you have the opposite where people are so tapped in, they're like always, they're just only in the astral plane and they're not really experiencing the full abilities of the physical body. What do you guys think about finding the balance within that?
I don't
IP,
think
I'll
it's
let you
really
take that
necessary
one.
to find I don't think it's really necessary to find a balance. It's more about being honest and real with where you're at. And there's no judgment on that. I used to be that person where I don't know anything about spirituality or anything else, just material things. That's all I wanted. And that's where I was at. But then I realized there was more. And then as I rise up, I started judging people who were so into material things. I've gone through so many different evolutions. Now I realize that there's no need for judgment. Oh, these are one whole vibration. It just depends on where the person is at in their evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel very blessed to have grown up with a very unique, interesting perspective on money, because at different stages in my life, I've been all over the spectrum of wealth. I grew up with a single mom, and we were very poor. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and but we camped, we traveled, we spent time in nature, and I never realized we were poor until after, and then at a different stage of my life, I was living in a multi-million-dollar house and going to Hawaii every year, and Italy, and traveling, and then now my family, we're very middle class. My stepdad is an engineer. He works hard, and we don't have a bunch of financial stress, but we don't have the amount of money to just go splurge on luxuries. And I think having experienced lower, middle, upper class, it really helped me realize what makes people happy. And it's not money as much as experiences, and sometimes experiences can be created by money. You don't get to go to Hawaii,
But
or
if the company sucks, if the vibes are bad, it doesn't matter where you are and how you got there,
totally, yeah. And there's a lot of people that are incredibly wealthy that are not happy.
And they're not having a good time when they go to all these great places and great resorts and great, everything, they're
Yeah,
having.
and I think it's a slippery slope where people want to demonize the rich so much. It's like,
Right.
eat the rich, whatever. When the rich are hurting too, you don't know what trauma is. You don't know what people have experienced in their life. And when we jump to these conclusions about people based on their socioeconomic status, then we divide
You're part of the
ourselves further.
problem. Yeah, it's exactly. If you're going to focus on someone else's material thing, then you're missing the whole point that they're a spiritual being in the first place, and they're going through their own evolutions and having their own phases a period of time. And if you're not willing to go there, and if you're willing to just demonize people solely on their physical area, then you're no better than the people who demonize people who have a lack, of sources. And it's redundant, and you're forgetting the whole point.
Yeah, success is spiritual to me. To get somewhere, to have a vision of what you want your life to be, the job you want, whatever, the company you want to start, and then to go through and make that real and make that happen for yourself. That's a very spiritual process.
Yeah, you have to face will, you have to face doubt, you have to face passion, you have to face everything
100%.
within yourself to make it possible.
And so I've learned a lot from wealthy people and successful people about my own spirituality and developing discipline and staying true to myself. And so yeah, it's a tricky subject to navigate, especially in the current climate. But yeah, we want to empower each other to become successful. And so there's things we can learn from successful people.
Yeah, it's not about what you have. This is what I realized. It's about your relationship with what you have that makes you happy or sad. It's a relationship. It always comes back to us. For example, I have a friend who's very, very rich, but he told me once that I couldn't believe it. I mean, he's driving like $250,000 cars and all that, but he wakes up in the middle of the night around 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, all sweating, anxiety. He's afraid he's going to lose all this. He's not happy.
Yeah, because I try to live in a state where I'm very aware of all the blessings I have, and all of the I love my car. I love being able to go drive anywhere I want, and I love having things and having them be a part of my life. And I think what has helped me is to view it all as a gift, and a temporary gift at that, and then I can appreciate everything I have with still if someone came in to and broke something, that it wouldn't be a big deal because I wasn't attached to it. You know, who I am isn't dependent on that. It's just something that is in my life that is making me happy.
Oh, that's perfect. Then let me share with you something, just a realization from a few years ago. One day I went to a store to buy an orange, and then I took it home, and I realized this doesn't make sense at all. I went to a store, I see an orange, I give it a piece of paper, and I take that orange home. So orange is still orange. I move it to a place I call home, and now I think this is mine. This whole thing doesn't make sense, and I realize this is all human construct.
Yeah.
To the animals, there's no such thing. To Mother Nature, there's no such thing. Orange is still orange, but I think it's mine. I only gave him a piece of paper. It just blows my mind away. I mean, if you look at it that way, a lot of things are just temporary.
Oh yeah, I mean that brings me to the concept of possession. I feel like there's so many times when we think it's the relationship. Going back to what you were saying, IP, the relationship between people and things, or people and people. There's a certain level of ownership that we build when it comes to relationships, and that ownership is very different depending on each person and each thing. But when it comes to possession, that idea of, you know, we own this thing and this thing is mine, you know, it could be with people, you know, I have this relationship with this person, and so this person is mine in that certain way. And if they break out of those molds, you know, then it's then all of a sudden you're taking away a part of that person's identity because they think that that thing is theirs, and that thing being theirs is part of their identity, you know. So possession is something that I think really relates to, you know, relationships and how we hold on to things. Because you can have you know, if you're terrified that you're going to lose things that you think are very nice, or you think you're going to, you base your whole life on gaining certain things, and your happiness, you think it depends on whether or not you have these items or not, because you retain them to your identity. um, to me, that if you're if you're feeling like, if you don't have a thing that is a material thing compared to the emotional and intellectual feelings that it gives you when you have that thing, um, then I feel like that's a form of possession. You know, like I feel like
Yeah.
something is controlling you to think that
Yeah.
you need something that is externally, you know, present. So, you know, that's why manifestation is so important. You got to already think that you have something, because that's how the energy will come to you. Is you already have the emotion and the feelings that that thing is already in your life. That's how it becomes present, is you already acting in that way. So if you are afraid that you don't have something, you're afraid you'll never get something, or you're afraid you're going to lose something, fear is what's going to, it doesn't matter if you have it or not. You know, people could live their whole lives and think that they are like super poor, and they live a poor life, and they act poor, and they think, you know, they're, you know, woe is me because I don't have these things. And lo and behold, maybe they had, you know, a secret account that was passed down and they didn't even know it, you know. And so this whole time they thought they were lacking, and then it turns out that they weren't. But that wasn't their reality, because they just acted like it wasn't, you know. And vice versa. You know, you can think that, you know, you thought that you had all of this, and so you act a certain way, and you find out it was all a joke, you know, or it was a scam, you know. And whether or not you act forward from that position, like, you can't base your identity on things. It's
And
not, it's
I
never.
like I like that you brought up people too. You know, we have these inanimate objects that bring us happy and like happiness and whatnot. And to a certain extent, I almost don't believe in inanimate objects, in that I think everything carries a bit of life in it. But the relationship you have with inanimate objects compared to the people in your life, where you have someone and you value them for the role they're playing, you know, where like, this is my friend that I go downtown and drink on Thursdays with, and you start to see them through that lens of like what they're doing for you. And that's a very like, it's a slippery slope.
You're treating them like an item instead of a
You are.
thing. I mean, a person.
That's what's so important about knowing yourself, is you have to know how you want to be treated in order to see that. And you don't want to be someone else's possession. You don't want to feel like you're indebted to someone to play out a certain role in their life. And so if you
Absolutely.
don't want to feel like that, then it's kind of up to you to make other people not feel like that. And if Thursday drink dude decides that he is done with alcohol for the next year, it's an unhealthy part of his lifestyle. It's not helping him be where he wants to be. Then if that person is your real friend, then there's other activities. There's other ways for you to stay in that person's life, and that's what friendship is. So cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever there's attachment, there's fear. You always go with it. And I think most people don't think about this, but when we say my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my wife, my husband, the concept of possession has been embedded unconsciously into all languages. But
Mm-hmm.
really, it's not really about possession. It's a way we describe the social structure and the relationship we have with another person.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to the relationship. The focus should be on the relationship, but most of us don't think of it that way. We think of it in terms of possession. And then you go furthermore from possession, you have enmeshment. This possession becomes part of your identity.
Yeah.
They're outside of you. My wife, my husband, my followers, my account. When you're enmeshed with that, then you unconsciously think if they do certain things, they cause you your negative emotions, they make you unhappy. Therefore, you must fix them or do something. Oh, this is outside of you. And you have lost yourself so much by this point. It always goes back to the relationship. Like, for example, you talk about your boyfriend. Yeah, that describes the relationship between you two. But the focus shouldn't be on your boyfriend, but it should be on yourself and your relationship with your boyfriend. If you focus on that, you will not enmesh and you will not break through that boundary and violate that boundary. But most people don't realize the subtle points, so they get enmeshed with it. That's why a breakup is so hard.
Yeah, I was it reminds me, I was dating someone last year, and we were having problems, and so I went and talked to my friend who is wiser than I am, and I was just talking to him about relationships in general, and just like how we have this societal idea of what a relationship's supposed to look at, like, that might not be healthy to try to play out anyways. But I remember him telling me that, I want to say he called it like Zim Zim or something, but he was talking about his relationship with his girlfriend and how they view like they are two separate entities, two beings, and when they run into any type of relationship problems, they talk about this Zim Zim, this it's their bond between them. And the way to maintain a healthy relationship is not necessarily to constantly be trying to appease one or another, but to honor the bond itself. It was it, it helped me at the time. It was, the relationship still didn't
That's
work, but
beautiful. That's really beautiful and true.
Yeah, I like that they made an identity for the connection so that they could easily find where they weren't connecting anymore. So let's say that they were having a problem with how someone's doing laundry. They could be like, but the schism between us allows us to see that we both want clean laundry, but how can we make this, work for both of our identities together, Because as independent creatures, we have a tendency to follow old habits. So if the schism almost requires you guys to both evolve into a different way that better suits the schism, how can that be done? And that working with each other to find that new ground that better follows the pathway of a healthy schism between each other. So
You need boundaries. You need very
yes.
clear boundaries. For example, if you're talking with your boyfriend, the decision that he makes, if it affects both of you in this relationship, there should be a discussion before he makes that decision.
Mhm.
However, if the decision he makes only affects himself, then that's outside of your boundaries to interfere.
Yeah.
There should be common understanding of this. So when you guys talk about problems of the relationship both of you intersect with, then you can clearly describe and not take on the energy of the problem. But if it's only really his own decision on his own side, nothing to do with your relationship, if he wants your feedback, then you can give it, but it's not required. So it become very clear and there won't be any enmeshment. This part is really difficult. It takes a lot of practice. It happens in the moment. You have to be aware of your relationship with the other person at that moment and what your responsibilities are at that moment, and you fulfill those responsibilities. And the hardest thing is that when you see someone you love, they fucked up, sometimes you're not supposed to save them from the consequences of their actions because they're
Mhm.
supposed to experience those consequences in order to learn.
Yep.
So in the longer run, by you saving them because you feel bad for them, you rob them the chance to evolve faster.
Hmm.
So there's
For
many,
the natural way they were supposed to learn.
yes, you want them to grow and learn, but by you saving them, oh, they can fucked up again. There's no consequence because you're over there to
Messing
clean up.
with natural law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm
So it's
interested.
about relationships.
It all goes back to relationships. You're right. Our relationships with things, our relationships with people, how we connect with these things that are outside of our own physical body and consciousness, our ego, I should say, not our consciousness, but our way that we can perceive things outside of ourselves, and how we allow it to affect our body, and how we allow it to affect our mind, and allow it to affect our experiences of these things. Because ultimately we are looking through a looking glass, and this being that is looking through, how are we allowing these things to connect to us or become us in all of these things. And I want to think about, just from an American point of view, the power of capitalism and the way that we have influenced, you know, millions of minds to focus on materialism more than another place. I mean, the world is pretty westernized, you know. I'm not completely at all, but the places that have become westernized, this westernized thing of materialism and things and more, and how that affects our identity. How do you think capitalism has added to this? And also, how do you think in the future, in these future generations and everything, how we can use capitalism to benefit the evolution of our consciousness for the best, you know?
Uh, to answer it from the pyramid realm perspective of what I want to do is, like, I want to, like, I think the revolution as I see it is like empowering small businesses. You know, it's about like using the system we have that is, like, it's not perfect, and it's no longer, I don't know, like, what capitalism was meant to be when it was conceived of. But especially with the internet, it is somewhat of a level playing field. If you can get your product out there, you know, you can start an Etsy, start a Twitter, and start selling your product pretty easily. And so, yeah, I guess that's how I see us changing the world, is to empower creators that are conscious, you know, to withdraw our money and our time and our energy from these giant corporations that have so many layers of bureaucracy between the person that's creating something and the person that's consuming it. Yeah, I try to do this thing with weed where like I go back to my like house with my family, my mom, my brothers, usually like 1 or 2 months out of the year, and I try to go cold turkey on weed, like partially just to like prove to myself that I don't have I don't have a dependency on any of these substances, that I can go cold turkey without having it affect like myself.
There's nothing wrong with dependence, actually. I will never tweet that on Twitter, but I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. It's natural. Sometimes you need certain things to cope. You're a human being.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah. And my like that's the way I see it, is like I have my life, and this is where I feel about weed is I've noticed when I smoke weed and my life is not together, like I notice, like the weed tells me,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if I have been pushing off the shit that's important, and I haven't called my mom in too long, and I haven't done this, I haven't done that, and then I go get lit, I notice that I'm like,
You have to confront it. It
yeah, the
Yeah.
weed is
confronts you.
like, bro, like why are you lit right now? Like I like as the weed ambassador, I'm talking to you. I like when you smoke me when you deserve me. I don't like when you smoke me to escape what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you face yourself, man.
It does.
So it's good in that way. It's good. You can use it that way.
Same with psychedelics. Like psychedelics made me get really real with myself, you know, facing some patterns and being like, okay, like coming back into my body, like in the psychedelic state, you're one with the universe, you know, you're not even really you. And then coming back into my body, I remember like noticing all the good things I do, of like, oh, like I'm excited to go back into Braden and do this and do that. And yeah, the things that I think are aligned with my purpose, like, oh, I'm excited to continue doing those. And then psychedelics also will show you the patterns you have that are destructive and be like, you don't want to continue doing that. And so yeah, I don't know, it's substances are a tricky topic to navigate, because I think there's probably something to be said for doing absolutely nothing and just
I
yeah.
think we're human beings. We're too hard on ourselves. I think control, consciously control escapism is okay. Even coping, it's okay once in a while. If you know
Yeah.
what you're doing, you can pull yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we say attachment, we usually have a negative judgment or thinking regarding the word attachment, but attachment is okay because there are healthy and unhealthy attachments. Like, for example, a mother and her newborn baby, there will be a certain attachment. It's natural. It's the way the bonds form. As long as it's healthy, you don't think that person is you. You don't mix your identity in it. You can have healthy attachment. It's very natural. But instead, a lot of people, when they get into the spiritual thing, attachment is bad. They try to get rid of everything, and they can. And so they go between, oh, I shouldn't have attachment, but they're still attached. They create their own suffering in there within their own mind construct. There's no need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
okay to
I
healthy
agree with what
attachment.
you said about escapism, you know, where like too much escapism is bad, where you're just like avoiding the life that's happening in front of you and the why you're here, you know. But also there's positive sides of escapism, you know, when art, like I know the artists I work with, I talk to one of them quite a bit about his creative process, and he talks about when he goes in and creates a piece of art, it's his escape for a second, you know. He's out of this
Yeah,
matrix, out of this human construct world, and he can go create something from his imagination, from his heart, and it
Therapy.
takes him out of his circumstances, whatever they are, for a moment, and
yeah,
it's healthy to do that. I think it gives
it
you good
is.
perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's
for
also
example, when we watch movie,
about
we're actually
codependent.
sleeping.
Yeah, yeah,
What we're doing, watching TV and movie, we're temporarily escaping from feeding ourselves, facing ourselves. It's like a little vacation. When people think of vacation, they think of all these positive things. but they really want something to change their environment. They don't want to go back to the 9 to 5 or face their same old routine. That's escapism.
Yeah, and
And if you have that escapism where it becomes a codependence, if you're not having a good relationship with that bond that you're building, that's when it becomes wrong. That's what I was talking about earlier, of having maybe an overactive chakra position, for example. If you're constantly astral projecting because you can't handle the physical life that you have going on, then you're continuously building a bond that is somehow now disservicing you.
yeah,
Um,
I read about that in the perennial philosophy, was that like it's this delicate balance where we glorify like our spiritual gifts, our spiritual superpowers of, yeah, we have the ability to astral project and we have the ability to remote view and all these things. And it can be a form of escapism where it's, because I've never really felt drawn I need to project, I need to do this, I need to do that. I feel very spiritual being in my body, that feels good to me. To be comfortable in my own skin is it's a great blessing.
yeah, they both help you in their way. Being spiritually inclined with like the non-material will help you in the material world, just as the material world will help you in the non-material. They complement each other if you let them,
Yeah, they do. It's beautiful.
very beautiful.
I think we have to be well grounded in 3D, enable to stabilize in 4D, and in order to float really naturally in 5D, it's grounded in 3D. So we don't want to be over attached and mesh with 3D. There has to be moderation. Then our 4D and 5D will be strong. It's like the chakra. The base chakra has to be balanced, aligned, and rooted and strong. Then your upper chakra will be better. It's like a building. The first floor is the second floor. So I wouldn't say 3D is bad, material is bad or something. It's the foundation. We need to have a healthy relationship with it. That's all.
Yeah, and I feel like in my own awakening, when I started that transition to 4D, 5D, whatever language people use to describe that, of unity consciousness, I found that like there was this phase where I used to be very, very social, very, yeah, like I loved talking to people about 3D, about like, oh, this is what's happening, that's what's happening, and being excited and kind of participating in life, and then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, the universe is crazy. There's a lot more going on than I previously understood. And I went through this phase where I was disconnected from 3D. Like it took a lot of effort for me to
Find your way
talk
back.
with people and to snap back into reality and to like be myself again. And then I got really good at integrating it all, where like sometimes I don't need to talk, like I talk about spirituality and consciousness and a lot of things that are important to me on Twitter, and I see it as this outlet for me to express that side of myself, because it almost helps me not be like that in person. Like I'm always there, but I learned how to like come back down to 3D, come back to my own personality and the parts that I loved about myself before my awakening. And I think it's actually it's a more effective way of drawing people into higher consciousness, is if you're willing to just come back down and be a part of life again. And then if someone wants to go and discuss these things, then you're already comfortable going and talking about these topics, but you don't need to.
You're not just pushing people.
Yeah, you don't need to be the ambassador for the global awakening at every second of your day.
Yeah, you don't need to be going to the grocery store and being like, did you know that the subatomic patterns that are going on right now allows me to hand you my it's like, whoa, let me buy my oranges, man. So yeah, I think you bring up a really good point of balancing that of who you are awake, you know, who you are in an awake state, and allowing yourself not to get lost in that sauce, and being able to move through the third dimensional reality in the best way you can, that will keep you awake, but also not freak out every single person around you because you're so awake, you know?
Yeah, like you don't.
You don't need
I
to
don't know.
blow your
I
trumpet
almost think
about, I'm awake. I'm
I almost
awake.
think the
Wake
most
up.
powerful thing you can do is like to just embody your knowledge, like more so than even talking about. Like embodying wisdom doesn't mean talking about wisdom all the time.
Living it.
It's
It's
just
by
living it.
example. You're just,
And
yep.
I don't claim to be there perfectly at all. You know, that's the same thing I want people to understand that only know me from Twitter is like these like I use Twitter to it's almost like I'm conversing with my higher self, and then my higher self tells me something that I need to integrate into my own being, and then I'll tweet that, you know, whatever that is. And it doesn't mean like, oh, I've mastered this concept, and if you're not here with me, then I am above you at all. It's like, this is the communication I'm receiving from my own higher self, and these are things that I'm going to try to integrate into myself. And yeah, I think that's the positive side of Twitter. Yeah, it's a fun outlet for conversations that we need to have right now about existentialism and where we want to go as a species. Did you see? Yesterday I tweeted that I'm convinced
The AI.
that AI is using our tweets to be trained on emotional intelligence. I'm curious what you guys think of that.
I think it's probably doing that, and I think they're working on artificial awareness. That's the next thing, I think, after the artificial intelligence. Yeah, so artificial awareness also includes artificial emotional intelligence. Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, because AI is such a topic to discuss because it's here. You know, we've created it whether we should have or not. You know, it's
That
here, and
physical reality is here no matter how much we want to try to escape it or not escape it.
and I remember I don't know. I remember there's a lot of like doomsday AI like philosophies that you can find out there. But I know Terrence McKenna had a much more positive view on AI actually, and that he thought that as AI becomes more aware of itself and understands us as its creator, that it would actually be, yeah, it would view us as gods almost. And if we develop a healthy relationship with AI, that we can offload the parts of human society and whatnot that we don't want, which is great. You know, there's a lot of dangers where if we start handing over the reins of our culture and our society over to AI, that, you know, that's a slippery slope. But to offload the parts of society that no person really wants to do anyways, then we can make that a positive thing. And that's why, like, yeah, I've started to think that the most useful and like powerful thing you could do is
Skilled AI to plant trees.
that'd be dope. But to like explore your inner world, explore yourself, explore how you feel about the world, about your life, about how you want your world to look like. Because we're now reaching that point where if we understand ourselves and we understand what we want society to look like and what we want our lives to look like, we can make that a reality. So instead of complaining all the time and going off on this agenda and that agenda, like, we just need to like tunnel vision on what we want our lives to look like. And I think AI isn't our enemy in all this. It can be a tool we use to achieve that.
It's how we use it, just like a knife. A robber can take a knife to rob somebody or kill somebody. A doctor can use a knife to perform surgery and save lives. It's how we use it, really.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's been the theme of our podcast, is that it's all about the relationships you develop with these tools.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
But more importantly, what I realized is that for me, I have to know clearly my relationship with 3D, with 4D, with 5D, how I relate and interact in these dimensions. That's number one. Number two, how do I interact and maintain the relationship with the people in 3D, 4D, and 5D? So I've been learning how to talk to them, basically.
yeah,
Like you guys said, we don't need to say, oh, we're awake and blah, blah, this and that. What is that? They don't know. Some people don't know what that is. So we have to be relatable to how do we interact with them. And so I've been working on that. Yeah, because no matter how we think of ourselves, they are here. Whether we want to accept them or not, they're here. We have to interact with them somehow.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think a good metaphor for AI, like to make it practical and like to help me understand it all in on a micro scale that I think is representative of the macro scale, is you have your phone, right? And on my phone I have maps. You know, that's AI, that it will pick my fastest route. If I went to my friend's house for Thanksgiving and he shoots me an address, I don't think of it at all. I type it in my phone. I follow my map all the way to his house. It's like 4 hours. I just listen to music. It's easy. And that for me made my life better, you know? But then on the flip side, I think there's a lot of people that every time they go to the grocery store, they put the grocery store into their phone. And that for me is not healthy, because I think you're less alive when you are in that mindset where you don't even feel like you're present enough and knowledgeable enough to get in your car and drive your own car to the grocery store because you
Same
know
place
the
you
route.
could.
You know, you've become enabled by AI to become less present in your body and less aware of your surroundings. And when you give up on when you give away your awareness, you're giving away some of your power. And so yeah, I think that is kind of a little microcosm of how I think we should use AI. Is there's certain circumstances in which we can offload this to an artificial intelligence and kind of relieve ourselves of the need to to print out a map quest and follow 100 steps, and if you miss it, you're kind of screwed. Whereas also not letting AI just completely control our lives and run our lives.
Mm-hmm. It
Yeah,
all
there
goes
should
back
be
to
a
that
fine point.
relationship.
IP?
There should be a fine point how much power you're willing to give it. And also by using it, does it actually make you lazy so you become unaware? You're not consciously living your life.
It does. Like, I think if you if every time you go to the grocery store, if you're putting it in your map and you're just following the directions, like you're almost in a sleep state, you know. And
Yeah.
that's why I have the same thoughts about like AI powered cars, because I'm sure they're already here. I worked a few conferences for Microsoft. I've seen the technology and it's here, and I imagine that they're going to roll it out on a massive scale, and a lot of people are going to be stoked for it, where they're excited to not have to drive and that they can be on their phones scrolling and whatnot. But then for me, it's also like I love driving. I love driving my car. I don't want to hand that over to a computer. And I'm worried about like the integrity of these tech giants in and and like here's a slippery slope that I think is another one that you can say it's a micro that's representative of the macro. Is, let's say self-driving cars, they come up with some science that says it's safer. like it's safer for society to drive a self-driving car. What happens when all of a sudden you have like people that then jump on board the self-driving car movement and they start to feel self-righteous about the fact that they drive self-driving cars because they're safer, and then start looking down on people who choose to just drive their car because they think, oh, you're putting society at risk. Because what you're doing is you're using safety as a means to strip people of their freedoms, and that's what I see a lot of in this whole COVID shit show. Is like we need to know ourselves enough to stand up for the freedoms that we're not willing to give away. And I'm not willing to give away my right to drive a car. I'm not willing to give away my right to assemble people in my house, and a long list of things that I know that I want to be in my life and that I know I will stand up for when it's time. And say no. We can't hand over all of our freedoms to go along with big corporate agendas.
And it's a matter of knowing the relationship of my freedom, what kind of freedoms do you possess and how do you plan to have that relationship with them? Some people are so willing to give away their freedom because they don't associate it with their identity, maybe they don't have friends, so they don't care, if they give away their freedom to assemble, maybe they don't, they don't have an identity towards other things. Maybe they don't have an identity towards the control that they have in driving, so letting go of that form of possession that they would have towards that is so easy for them. So when it comes to freedom, having that identity of what it is to have that control within oneself, people in more less free countries, they don't know what it is that we possess in order to feel that lack of freedom, So what does it mean to know that possession of freedom? What does it mean to have those idealisms and how to maintain them? What is a healthy relationship with maintaining certain responsibilities and retaining the control that comes from independence?
Yeah, I tweeted that the other day that like at certain points in my own journey of activism, I've been very frustrated by people who like strictly stick to virtue signaling of like we need like this movement, and never discuss freedom. I think there's a large segment of especially the political arena and a lot of the activism I see that never really like stands up for our right to continue living our lives and to be free. And then at a certain point, like I realized like you can like people stand up for the good parts of life that they've experienced, so if you've experienced like hate speech, for example, then and if you felt that effect of like people doing this or that, then you are drawn to stand up in a more PC way of like we need to regulate the way we talk to each other, and we need to foster safe environments for people to feel themselves. But if you've never felt like the rush of freedom, of driving with your top down and wind in the hair and throwing a giant party and dancing, and if you've never felt that, then I can't really be mad at you that you don't want to protect it, because you don't know what you're missing so much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that helped me find
between people who are willing to give away these things with their, let's say maybe I can't summarize and I would never dare to ask you to, but maybe in a hypothetical world there was a connection between people so willing to give up certain freedoms because they never knew to feel so alive in a certain freedom, like what you're saying. Maybe there's a correlation between these people who are so willing to give away or give up certain freedoms because they've never felt so alive, because maybe they've been on, so trapped in like a phone sort of world that they would never felt so alive in a certain way where they would know that it was something that they were actually giving up in the first place.
Yeah, and I just like I feel like, yeah, I've gone all over the place in terms of my research into conspiracies, and ultimately come to the conclusion that the heart of it is that they want us numb, because when we're alive to our potential, to our true nature, to our sovereignty, to that rush of the infinite potentials of life, that you can wake up and no one owns you, and you can,
The complacency doesn't exist
yeah,
and
you
they can
can.
no longer
And
control.
I'm going to tie this back to COVID, because like one thing that I think is a beautiful part of the world is the right for us to travel. The right for me to pick a country on a map and to go there, and same with live music, and these things that give my life meaning and bring me happiness and fulfillment. And I'm concerned that with the vaccine and with the, yeah, just with the state of the world right now, that they could try some power trip where they don't make the vaccine mandatory per se, but they say everyone who isn't vaccinated. What if now employers have the right to not hire you? What if you no longer have the right to get on a plane? What if you no longer have the right to attend music? Like, these are things that I think people who don't take the time to really research and just are willing to regurgitate the opinions of mainstream media, like I can see it in my life. Like, I can see these people are willing to go along with that, and I'm not, because that's against body sovereignty. That's against our freedom. We don't have to inject things into our body to earn the right to go listen to music and to travel the world. Yeah, freedom. Freedom's a beautiful thing that I think people should respect more, because ultimately we want to be free. And this is something that I kind of, yeah, in my own journey tried to really respect, is when I see someone expressing themselves outside of the norm, whatever that is, whether it's they have a controversial take, or whether they dress really interesting and they're wearing something that someone might make fun of them for. you know I've tried to really be appreciative of that, where if I see someone wearing like a pink blazer with a purple tie and a green bandana, like,
It shapes their reality, and now
yeah,
it shapes everyone else's reality around them because now they have to experience
yeah, and
their
there might be a
ways.
part of me, and it's a conditioned part of me, but there might be a part of me that my first instinct is like, I kind of want to tease this person, or I want to poke fun at them, when really that person is creating an environment for me to be myself. And maybe I don't want to
For
dress
you
all
to
the way
have
over
it to
there,
reflect.
but maybe I want to wear something that someone else might think is ridiculous or stupid or silly. And when you start going along with your conditioning and demonizing people that are outside of the mainstream, really you're tightening the box you've drawn around yourself. And that's the worst, because that's the opposite of expansion. That's the opposite of growth, is to just be really judgmental and trapping yourself in your own judgments and living in your own shame. Yeah.
Yeah,
When
I'm
you
so
set
done
those
with that.
boundaries,
I'm so done with that. It took me a long time to realize I'm so done with putting people in my mental stories, and they become characters in my head, and I start judging them and thinking I'm better than them. I start blaming them and shaming them. I'm so done with that. That just lowers my vibration. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for anyone. But it takes a lot of awareness and practice to see what I'm doing it. When I see someone I don't agree with, it's an old habit will actually come up, want to jump back in there, then I have to pull myself out. But it becomes easier. And life is so much better when I don't live in my head, putting people in my stories. It's such a beautiful interactive experience, you see. But for what you're saying regarding freedom, I think everyone has to decide for themselves what is okay and what is not.
Mhm.
And it's okay if everyone else says that that's not okay, or that's okay, it doesn't match yours, and that's fine too, because it's your life. You make that decision yourself. Yeah, we have given up a lot of our quote unquote freedom for in the name of safety. Yeah, a lot of this is designed the 4D darkness. It's being rolled out in phases. I don't want to talk too much more because I don't want my account to be banned. I'm trying really hard not to get my account banned or suspended. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. And yeah, I
I
think
feel like
honestly,
I gotta say this. I gotta say this. Okay. So the independence that comes from wearing whatever you want and having that freedom and independence to do that, it forces everyone around them to face themselves, you know, whatever emotional charge that someone gets from someone else being who they are and being authentic, they are forced to face everything that they're going through. Whatever emotional charge they're getting, oh, I don't like that outfit, so that means I don't like them, or it's so different from what I would consider the norm. And them facing like, why does it make you feel uncomfortable? Why don't you like that? Why are you now facing this tension between judging and judgment between you versus them, and what is really better, this thickness and barrier, you're now having to face that wall. And so no matter how they respond, you know, you're still allowing that opportunity for someone to face themselves, you know, by you being authentic.
yeah, I think that's a great place to call it for today. But thank you so much for coming on, Inner Practitioner and
Thank
Elle.
you.
This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. See you guys on Twitter.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you too. All right, have a good day, guys.